gentle, as you see his desperation. In other words, it's one thing to say we have a disagreement.
I pretty much knew
on policy.
what I was getting into.
Okay,
I didn't
seek running for leadership. People encouraged me to do so. Prevailing. And I knew my
but it's
why.
Another thing to say.
I knew what was at stake. I knew how to get the job done, and I knew how to draw people together.
Person is above the
and
law.
At the same advice I give others, which is the freedom of the press.
Women have intuition.
People
don't talk about it so much.
But when I was young, that was what people talked about. Intuition is a very valuable thing.
I'm above the law.
So, and when people say to me they want to run for president or governor
of course,
or mayor,
more frightening.
or even leadership
to our
in the
democracy,
Congress, I said,
but we intend
understand
to
you're going from a deductive reasoning of how do we get this legislation passed to intuitive. There's a problem. You must act. The more time it's interesting to see, the fewer your options are. There's a certain element of the population who will just go for him. They're people have good judgment, be wise. They don't share our values in terms of respect for the dignity and worth of every person.
President Trump many times, and
there
are some spots of trouble.
Supporting him,
or
just
are
afraid.
people more afraid now of taking him on?
So I didn't stand up for him to him many times. I stood up to him once. It lasted a very long time. No, because of the goodness of the American people, the strength of our democracy. People are afraid of him now because
we will prevail.
As you see his desperation, in other words,
it's still there.
It's one thing to say we have a disagreement on
is
policy.
Is a Republican
president
candidate?
We have another thing to say. I'm not into Republicans. I'm into truth is not prevailing. But it's another thing to say. There's a recognition of all the violations of the rule of law, that any person is above the law, undermining the press, which is our country. The freedom of the press is the guardian of the gate of freedom. So he was clever. Undermine the press, undermine the rule of law, recapture
above the law.
because the public, so America needs a strong Republican
to which he will
go.
Of course, is more frightening
too, but
he's a threat to our democracy.
So hopefully,
but we intend to win.
He's so popular
with the
vote. He's popular among his group.
Are you surprised at how popular he is?
Well, I'm never surprised. It's not a word I use. I just don't use it. It's interesting to see how there's a certain element of the population who will just go for him.
Up next,
they're people we would probably never get. They don't share our values in terms of respect for the dignity and worth of every person and the rest. But there are some who are supporting him. We're just afraid.
But we're going to share
and that's to be respected. And we have to work with the Chinese and when people ask me, are you afraid of what might happen? I say no, because of the goodness of the American people, the strength of our democracy.
We will prevail.
And they're part of the solution.
And my motto
is the flag is still there, as we say in our national anthem.
Is there a Republican president, a candidate that you could live with?
I'm not into Republicans. I'm into the Democrats, and hopefully the Republican Party can find a candidate that America can live with. I say to the Republicans all the time, take back your party. The Republican Party is a great party. You've done great things for our country. You're not a cult to a thug. You're a great, grand, old party. And recapture that, because America needs a strong Republican Party, a strong Democratic Party too, but a strong Republican Party. So hopefully, as soon as we get through this, shall we say, cancerous situation that we're in, the malignancy of Trump, they will emerge in a strong way with the leadership that I know is there in the Republican Party.
Up next, Nancy Pelosi's harsh assessment on China and why she thinks the world's two biggest economies must cooperate on climate change.
We don't have shared values, but we have a shared planet,
Washington
and
has
we have to work with the Chinese to save the planet, because they're now, I think, the biggest emitter, if not us, they're second, and they're part of the solution in all of this.
When you look at geopolitics, what scares you the most?
There are three things. One is security. Security, 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 so important. Security. Secondly is economics. How do we relate economically? Because that's the strength of all of our countries, to do so in a shared manner. And governance. Governance. What is the strength of the democracy in your country? How do you treat people and respect them? What is the integrity of your economic system? So those are the how we relate as Americans going abroad. On security, what is happening in Ukraine is a challenge to democracy, not just there, not just in the NATO countries, but really to the world. And what a tribute to democracy that the courage of the Ukrainian people. Striking is that Putin does not share any values of democracy, of justice, of respect for the lives of people,
from Taiwan
for
to tech
children or
hubs,
anything.
human rights concerns to COVID. China's relationship with the U.S. has been rocky. In recent months, Washington has sent several high-profile officials to Beijing, seeking to improve ties. But will anything change? I continue the conversation with Nancy Pelosi, a longtime critic of the Chinese government.
When you look at geopolitics, what scares you the most?
There are three things. One is security. Security, security, security. So important. Security. Secondly is economics. How do we relate economically? Because that's the strength of all of our countries. To do so in a shared manner.
Isn't that
and
sad?
Governance. Governance. What is the strength of the democracy in your country?
So
how do you
sad
treat
so
people and
extreme
respect them?
that it's
what is the integrity
to
of
me
your
is
economic
not
system?
but an
So
opportunity.
those are the how we relate as Americans going abroad. On security, what is happening in Ukraine is a challenge to democracy, not just
China,
there,
for example,
not
if you look
just
at
in
what the U.S.
NATO
has been doing
countries,
with China and
but
how they
really
should
to the world. And what a tribute to democracy that the courage of the Ukrainian people are. What's frightening is that Putin does not share any values of democracy, of justice, of respect for the lives of people, concern for children or anything. And he's frightening, but it's doubly frightening is a person like the former president who thinks that's okay. Well, isn't that sad? But it's so sad and it's so extreme that it's everything to me is not frightening, but an opportunity.
An opportunity, but when you look at China, for example, if you look at what the U.S. has been doing with China and how they should treat China going forward.
On how
China's a big country, and we have, and so are we.
In terms of we have to find an accommodation on how we
China has been a violator
treat each other. But in terms of
technology,
the three things I named,
security,
China has been a violator
in terms
of transferring technology, weapons of mass destruction to rogue countries. In terms of economics, they've been violated almost every trade rules and the rest. And in terms of standard of access, piracy, Tibet. WTA rules and the rest. And in terms of governance, I tell you, Hong Kong, Tibet, Uyghurs, threat to Taiwan and the rest. And we have to work with the Chinese.
We don't have
to
shared values.
Save the planet. Now I think the biggest
we have to work with the Chinese.
They're second to save the planet.
They're part of the solution.
Now I think the biggest emitter, as much as I have, they're second.
For 35 since Tiananmen Square. How many years?
And they're part of the solution in all this. I've been to China as much as I have for 35 since Tiananmen Square. How many years is that? 34 years.
Economics.
Been a strong critic of China in so many respects.
Still, we have to work together in certain areas, and we have to find those. I don't think we find them by rewarding them. I think we have to work together in certain areas, and we have to find those. I don't think we find them by rewarding them. I think we find them by
actually relationship with the
mutual
U.S.
discussion about how we can go forward.
Does that bring them closer? Better working relationship.
That's up to them.
Actually, relationship with the U.S. so that maybe it becomes a better working relationship also economically.
Our trade deficit with China is an immorality sometimes of their the fuss that was made a long time ago about Japan was like 2 to 1, almost 3 to 1 sometimes of their imports into our country versus our exports to theirs. With China, it's about the double that.
I said.
And it's
the trade
when I
deficit
first
was
started
$5
criticizing
billion
China.
And people said
about
to
the
me,
3 areas
oh,
I
you
said.
can't make a fuss over that.
The trade deficit was $5 billion a year.
And people said to me,
the trade is going to lead to this, that, and the other thing.
Well, now
because
the trade deficit
the
with
peaceful
China is not
evolution is going to lead to
a year.
the trade is going to lead to this, that, and the other thing.
Well,
and
now the trade deficit with China is
not $5 billion a year. It's $5 billion a week.
go into other countries, we gave it to them, support, and they use that money, and we're their foreign exchange to that. And I've always criticized go into other countries, buy up, support, and the rest of that.
How often do you get asked about
and
your trip
we were
to Taiwan?
Accomplices to that. Not enough. I've always criticized our policy toward China in that regard.
How often do you get asked about your trip to Taiwan?
Not enough. I love talking about it. As a matter of fact,
do you think it's changed something in the way that the U.S. and China speak to each other?
Well, there's no President Xi has been always criticized Taiwan, criticizing him. He never said colleagues, men, senators, and the rest. He never had been to Taiwan right before me. He never said it. Did you know that? About.
Did you know that?
China, he never said a word. But I have been sort of
a lot for the Chinese people.
Outspoken about
when I was a little girl,
China, U.S.-China relations,
deep enough,
and with the love for China, with the love for the Chinese people.
So we felt that we were when I was a little girl,
connected. If you dig a hole deep enough in the
any sand at the beach, you will reach China. So we
felt that we were all
Chinese
connected.
It's about
so it isn't with
it's about what
a dislike
for genocide
things
of
Chinese or people Chinese.
Of democracy.
It's about. In Hong Kong,
it's about what?
A genocide of the Uyghurs, a suppression of democracy,
taking down
Hong Kong,
the culture, the language, and the religion,
while promising
people
in
Tibet,
one country, two systems,
the threat to
taking down of the culture, the language, and the religion,
freedom of
the people in Tibet, the threat to Taiwan,
the threat to
democracy.
Our visit did nothing to alter that.
Freedom of speech.
What do you think will happen with Taiwan?
We recognize China.
Our visit did nothing to alter that,
and our relationship with Taiwan,
communiques,
which are very specific,
that govern
our relationship with China
and our relationship
with Taiwan
itself,
which are very specific,
attacked.
And we are committed to
change in status
helping
unless it would be
Taiwan
defend
peacefully,
itself,
but no
should
aggression
attacked
from either
we
side.
We don't want any change in status unless it would be done peacefully, but no aggression
which could impact the rest of the
side.
world.
Yeah.
Speaker, we're seeing also a downturn in terms of the economy in China, which could impact the rest of the world. Do you think President Xi is losing control of it?
We and other countries decided to ride this
we just
tiger,
everything they had to sell,
and we poured money.
And then when
when their economy
we just
is in trouble,
everything
like,
they had to sell,
look, it has an impact on us.
And then
surprise,
and then
surprise,
their economy is in trouble, we're like,
look, it has an impact on us.
Surprise, economically, because people suffer economically.
It's not
we don't want any country to suffer economically because people suffer economically.
One man
but understand
show,
this,
it's
anything
centralized
economy,
values,
governance,
integrity.
One man show. It isn't anything
about
to do with democratic
values,
governance.
Freedoms. I'm not even talking about
integrity.
I'm not talking about establishing a democracy.
Certainly nothing to do with democratic freedoms. I'm not even talking about a democracy. I'm talking about establishing a democracy. What we're talking about.
I mean, it's pretty
Speaker, at the same time, the economy is actually falling.
In terms
so
of
is he?
He is a step backward from President Hu, by the way.
We don't wish
but Speaker, at the same time, the economy is actually falling. So
but
is
we
he?
Don't say, oh my gosh.
I mean, how do you read that?
Some people
we
have
don't
an
wish
attitude.
a failing economy
I
on
profited
anyone,
for it.
But we don't say, oh my gosh.
No, some people have an attitude.
I profited for it
to just go along with the whole China thing.
And now
money has been
really
a sad
factor
it was
in
worth
this
it
because
to me
from
to
the
just
start,
go along with
corporate
the whole
America,
China thing.
Money
Corporate
has been
America
really a sad factor in this because from the start, corporate America
mostly ever have.
Corporate America
just
and
said
we don't care about human rights.
Security pieces of it they should have
mostly ever
but
have.
On the
they don't care about human rights.
And
most
the small businesses that would want
security
to trade
pieces of it they should have
cut
but
out because
on
the Chinese
trade
if you want to
sell
most
to us,
small
you must
businesses that would want to trade to China
and if you
were
manufacture here,
cut out because the Chinese said if you want to sell to us, you must manufacture here.
And if you
by
manufacture
not
here,
selling here,
we
want
to compete with us in the global market.
And if we have your designs, we don't need you anymore.
Up next,
and by the way,
Pelosi
you're not selling here.
You
can compete with us in the global market.
Be a free-for-all.
We need guardrails.
Up next, Nancy Pelosi on why artificial intelligence can't be a free-for-all.
Doesn't do harm,
we need guardrails. We need standards and the rest, so that this double-edged sword doesn't do harm, but instead does good.
Suppose somebody is watching and says, "I want to be Ari Emanuel when I grow up." What should somebody do to get into the talent agency business? Well, somebody is watching and says, I want to be Ari Emanuel when I grow up. What should somebody do to get into the talent agency business or the business you're in?
Well, it's hopefully what I've taught my kids. You got to show up. And you got to know this like I know intellectually curious. I got on a lot of planes. You got to be, even though you got to show up. That voice in your head is saying, know this like I know this. All right, I don't want to. I got on a lot of planes. You got to show up. You got to be, even though that voice in your head is saying, oh, God, I'm so tired, I don't want to do this. You got to show up.
Speaker, how much time do you spend thinking about Elon Musk?
Charmingly
he's a force.
You have to build
I do think he's a force in terms of technology, especially
there's no straight line
to
of success. It's kind of all over the place, and you have to just be able to work through those things. And then I think one of the things that I do every week is I try to create serendipity.
Bloomberg UK, your source for news and analysis covering the biggest challenges facing the UK government, economy, financial services, and markets.
Tax cuts should not be the priority. It's about a credible plan for growth over the next 2-3 years.
In this post-Brexit world, how do you see actually servicing your clients?
It was disruptive, and it's going to have implications to how capital raising works.
Now we're having...
Watch Francine Laqua Thursdays at 9:30 a.m. only on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
Artificial intelligence, the buzzword that's dominating headlines and creating a frenzy in the tech
right now we have
But the dangers of misinformation and fears of potential threats to privacy, security, and livelihoods have forced governments to move to regulate it. It's a task lawmakers in the U.S. are still grappling with. I continue the conversation with Nancy Pelosi.
And actors and the rest, and there has to be respect for the creativity.
Speaker, how much time do you spend thinking about Elon Musk? He's a force.
Could have an impact on that. Yeah, well, I do think he's a force in terms of technology, and especially relating to laws to Ukraine. But I don't spend too much time. We have a lot in our Constitution. Strong, we have respect for copyright leaders. I come from an area that is very, shall we say, technologically on the move. And every year since I've been in office or even before, they have said to me, while it's done tremendous good. So we don't know what is next, but I don't spend too much time thinking about him.
In terms of AI or technology,
AI is a double-edged sword, and that's in my district, too, in San Francisco. And the people that I know who are working in it, who care about our country, know that it's a double-edged sword, that we need guardrails, we need commerce, and family standards, and the rest, so that this double-edged sword does not harm, doesn't do harm, but instead does good, and it can do some dirty stuff. But right now we have a strike in the creativity industry, so there has to be and actors and the rest, and there has to be respect for the creativity that they have. Think that there's a regulation in the law has an impact that could have an impact on that, and we have to recognize that right laws
when we talk about leadership, it's also, I guess, about
respect
grooming the next generation.
In our Constitution, we have respect for copyright.
But do we need to regulate AI just for president or for senator?
And protections, we do social media for senator from California.
Social media has been
a double-edged sword. It's done tremendous damage, while it's done tremendous good, and that's really sad. But who would want to reverse the ability to have a country where they're talking about health, technology, has been education, and commerce, legislation for family communication, you're talking about protecting our natural resources, whether it's water, while at the same time saying, and so again, it's a big state, filthy, dirty stuff economy in the world presented to our children and the rest of that. In the Senate. So there has to be a way for families to know how to protect their children. I myself think that there's a regulation in the law that could be changed to protect children. That's an ongoing fight we have with the technology industry.
When we talk about leadership, it's also, I guess, about grooming the next generation. Is there anyone that you would support in the Democratic field
for president,
for president or for senator?
I'm supporting Adam Schiff for senator from California. We have 40 million people in our state. Our senator, who is very revered, Senator Feinstein, has been a champion in California and in the country, whether you're talking about assault weapon ban. She has been the leader in passing legislation for that. Whether you're talking about protecting our natural resources, whether it's water, forests, and so again, it's a big state. It's the fourth economy
do beyond
in
that.
the
So you're
world,
not going anywhere for now.
and we need full strength in the Senate.
Well, there have been younger Democrats, saying that senior senator. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Criticizing.
Right. Yeah, for some people criticize women. Hey, welcome to our world. People criticize everybody.
But should they not criticize if you're going to
They can do whatever they want. It's a free world, but they don't. And I can criticize them for criticizing her, because the fact is she's been really so had concerns in their service, and some of them young, but nonetheless ill. But you never even heard about them, and I'm not going to tell you who they are.
Speaker, a final question, the big elephant in the room, because we're an entity, is that there are always rumors that you'll end up as ambassador, maybe to the Vatican.
No, we have an ambassador.
Will you serve your full term?
No, as Congresswoman. Absolutely, positively, no question about that. Question is what I do beyond that.
So you're not going anywhere for now?
No. Well, I'm here.
Speaker Emerita, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much.